Hello everybody and welcome to tonight's live stream. I am JD. Welcome to everybody who is watching tonight. Hopefully you are coming along in your droves. I'm joined tonight by Matt, of course. Hello Matt.
Hiya, how's it going?
Well, I'm very well. I hope everybody in the chat is doing really well. How are you doing this evening?
Busy, tired, but hyped because I'm looking forward to sitting down and just enjoying a bit of London Brighton.
Lovely. And I mean, there are plenty of admin things that I think I need to talk about at some point, but I think we said let's get going, let's get on the route, and let's do some discussion as we're going through the route. So Matt, take us through what we're going to be doing tonight.
Yeah, so I am going to set us up and we're going to start off with what is it, Ron Romeo 17, so that we can look at Reigate, and we'll do a Reigate into Victoria. And then and then after that we're going to do a Brighton to Victoria Gatwick train. So we get a look at the Reigate branch, and then we're going to do a nighttime Brighton to Victoria run, so that we can see nighttime Gatwick and so on and so forth. Annie Howard, no, I didn't find my other ear. For my shame, I have still not found it. I have looked. It's not like I didn't look, but I had to buy a new set. I know.
It's dedication to the cause though, Matt. I'm enjoying your dedication to the pink ears.
It's got to be done.
Massive.
It's got to be done. Let me just get safety systems all activated here. I will get out and show the station in a minute. Right, it's got AWS on. Put the master key in. Forward. Acknowledge. Put the headlights on. And get the doors open. Right, let's have a look around outside. So this is Reigate, which no longer has a housing estate on the platform.
Hey, so, there we go. That's very important to know. That's what we kind of did want to start with Reigate tonight, because we know there have been a few questions about some of the screenshots.
Right, and rightly so. After the screenshot that came out, it was like, yeah, that's not great. So, yeah, that's why we're starting here. The team have now resolved Reigate. Yeah, happy days.
We'll do all the kinds of things that we normally do, like showing the map and everything like that as we get going. There are a few other things that we need to highlight and to talk about as well that have been going on generally in the world of TSW2. But we are on PC tonight, we're on Steam. We will aim to try and do an Xbox stream tomorrow night when we do the Let's Play of the route. Tonight, obviously, this is a preview. Matt, we were a little bit late tonight. Apologies for that. Matt was hit by a very late notice update to the build, so we had to download that with about 15 minutes to go.
That's like I got the build working earlier on, not that earlier on even, like an hour ago, and made sure all was good. Played it for a little while. Yeah, we're all good. And then I was about to start the stream, and I thought, let's get the game running. And well, it said, oh, by the way, you need to do a quick download. No, don't do that. Never mind. Here we are.
There's always something, Matt. Always something. If it's not your laptop or your PC blue screening, it's getting hit by a late update or Steam breaking, or I mean, it happens every time.
Keeps it real, doesn't it? It keeps it real.
Cool. Okay, so first point of call really is to talk about what has perhaps changed since we showed you the route on Friday, because obviously we did the first route preview on Friday. We showed you, I think, a fair amount of the route, but I suppose in terms of what might have changed in today's stream with this build, which, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, is this the launch build that we are playing now, or the build the players will be
short
able
of
to
anything
play?
being found that would make that not happen, this is the shipping build that I'm playing at the moment.
Cool. So what might have changed since players, apart from by the looks of things, Reigate Station, what might have changed since Friday?
There's also all sorts of bits and pieces that have been changed throughout the route. Some scenery tweaks and some other items that were found just needed polishing up. The art team have been quite busily working. I haven't got a list off the top of my head of all the things that have been polished, but it is mostly polished since the last session and this one.
Cool. And we have Joe in the chat as well. Hello, Joe. I heard you did a fantastic job in the stream on Friday, so welcome to the chat. And I'm sure if you have any timetables related questions, Joe will jump on them and be able to answer them. If you haven't watched Friday's stream, really recommend you do, because Joe goes into quite a lot of detail about what we've done with the timetabling on this route, because it is very complex. It is probably the biggest set of services that, well, again, Matt, you might have to correct me on this one, the biggest set of services that we've ever done on a route.
Yes, it is.
And it is pretty comprehensive, so he does a really good job of explaining it all and why we've done it and how we've done it, so would really recommend that you watch that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the timetable, and I think it runs in total with all of the layers active to something like 4,500 services in total, not all playable. But that just gives you an idea of how much traffic there is on this route. Even if you're not driving all that traffic, there's a lot of services on there. And then even if you've got all of the layers, it's something like 1,400 playable services, which is, easily the biggest one in the game.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject of layers, it is worth reiterating what we were talking about on Friday and what's in the article that was released on Friday, which talks a little bit more about layering and the layers on the route. If you're on a Xbox Series X, or if you are on a PS5, or you're playing on Steam or Epic, you'll get access to all of these layers as a kind of lovely additional extra. In terms of PS4 and the previous gen Xbox consoles, you will have access to the core route, which will include the services for the 377 and 387, but there will not be other services involved on launch. Matt, I don't know if we've had discussions internally about what we might be able to do, because it's an optimization side of things. It's to do with performance. It's to do with making sure that you can play the core route without there being any performance issues. So is there a discussion about what we're doing in terms of optimizing the route, potentially to perhaps reopen a couple of those layers further down the line?
Yeah, I mean, we're carrying on with the optimization work that was started with the Munich route, was then set back by the 4.26 core upgrade. So there's still some other tasks that actually there's some more fundamental optimizations that have been done, which aren't even in the game yet because they're so fundamental. They need you need more than 5 minutes testing on them. There is already some stuff coming. And we've also, because I think Dresden's been having some problems as well, and so in partnership with looking at Dresden's, actually a few changes been made to some of our tooling, so that so for example, the thing that stops you falling through the ground when you walk outside on the grass on the left there's a collision volume on the ground. Well, actually, and all those collision volumes take up memory, and actually it's doing collision volumes, on the entirety of the terrain. So one of the things that has been tested is removing it all where you can't get to, and that actually saves a fair bit of memory. So again, I don't know how much that's been run on here, but it's another tool that we've got in our kit to try and resolve some of these issues. So there are a number of things going on at the moment, and if we can bring them back, then that's absolutely the goal. We totally want to bring them back so that you get the full experience on the Xbox One and the PS4. We're not there yet, and again, some of these optimizations do need rather more thorough testing, because when you optimize things, you tend to, it's not just make stuff smaller. Optimize is a word I see people throwing around like it's press the optimize button. And actually optimization is incredibly difficult, because you can spend an awful lot of time and save a byte. You can save tiny amounts of memory, and it's really up to working out the right places to do it, and then stopping at and then figuring out what changes make the most difference with the least damage to the rest of what's going on. Because you could make all the textures half as big, everything be a bit blurry, but wow, you'd save a lot of memory. But no one wants that. That's the wrong way to do the optimization. You want to keep everything sharp the way it is, but find out the other things, like these extra collision volumes that don't need to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of the hidden wins, really, isn't it? I suppose the things behind the scenes that don't necessarily make a huge difference to players playing the content, but actually the things that make a big deal when it comes to the, I was going to say face cams, when it comes to the actual the back end, I suppose, or the the things that are not going to, the things that are going to make the best impact on performance.
Yes.
One of the things you might have also noticed as well is the passengers. Now, this is something that we probably need to mention at this stage, is that with the build that's going live tomorrow, the rush hour passenger system will not be live on this route.
No, the new characters will be there,
the
quantity of characters will still be at pre-rush hour levels. So it's part of this optimization work that we're doing at the moment. We haven't been able to turn them back on again. They will come back on. They're not turned off for unscrupulous reasons. They'll come back on, but they didn't make it in time for the build. So as soon as we've got finished with the work that we're doing in the short term, we'll get this back on again as soon as possible.
Yeah, that'll come with a patch, ideally sooner rather than later. Let's say.
Yeah, I didn't really want to release it with it turned off, but that's how it's turned out, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Shall we? Are you waiting? Yeah, you got waiting for a little bit whilst you load the passengers. Yeah. Shall we take a look at the route map? We can do some camera work if we like. That's cool.
Alright, hang on a minute. I'm trying to work out. There's no PIS showing on. Joe, what's this train doing? Diverted from Seven Oaks tunnel closures. Is that what it is? It's got no PIS, Joe. What's going on? Right, route map. So this is where we were on the Reigate branch, coming down here. This is Red Hill. And that train is going away. Still without PIS. Excellent. This is got Victoria up here. Loads and loads of trains in Victoria moving around. You've got I think these are Grosvenor Sheds. Got a train waiting to come into Victoria there. You've got Battersea Park there. Clapham Junction there. Route swings around here, comes across. This is the Selhurst Depot, and the route comes down into East Croydon. We carry on all the way down here. You've got the Coulsdon and so forth. This line here that crosses out here is not playable, but it's visible. And the main line carries on down here. This is where it splits into the Red Hill and Quarry lines. And both of which are accessible. This is Red Hill here until you get to this station that I can't remember the name of, which Joe's probably going to yell at me later for. And then as we get further down here, eventually you get to this Gatwicky place here, where I believe there's an airport or an airfield of some sort. Then we carry on down, and you've got Three Bridges with the Thameslink depot going on here. No, that isn't a hint. And then we carry on down the line here, continuing down. I think this is Wivelsfield. That looks like the junction that takes you to Lewis in reality. Yeah, that'll be the junction there. So that line comes up to there, that one goes down to there, and you meet over here somewhere in Lewis. And then eventually you get down to Preston Park and Brighton, Lovers Walk Depot. Now this is included in the map. It's there for AI servicing only. Playable area stops about there and stops about there, or stops at the tunnel, I think, actually, in both cases. So this is here for servicing AI only, and then that's of course London Road, Viaduct and so forth up here on the East Coastway, which again over this bit here is for AI trains to use. Right, I can shut the door.
So pretty comprehensive, pretty big, pretty I'm trying to think of the right word, but it's a pretty hefty route, really, isn't it?
Substantial.
I just see there was a couple of questions that I just wanted to see. So make a note. We have talked about PIS. Oh, sorry, not in this particular stream, but me and Matt behind the scenes talked about PIS. We've got it in. We'll talk a little bit about PIS in a little bit's time. We'd like to do an interior of the locos as well that we're doing, so we'll do that as well a little bit later. And what else? Release times. That was what I wanted to touch on sort of straight away, really. So there is a little bit of a necessarily a quirk, but generally what would happen is on Xbox and PlayStation, you would generally see a route go live or a new piece of a new add-on go live at midnight your local time. For PlayStation, that is still the case. For Xbox, the route will be going live for you tomorrow morning. BST. So we can't really be specific because it requires some manual work our end, but we're able to put it live tomorrow morning, and then on the Steam and Epic side of things, it will be afternoon tomorrow. So there's a little bit of a staggered launch depending on which platform you're on, but everybody should have it in their hands by the end of the day tomorrow.
So someone asked about PIS boards. So I've just done the exterior PIS board. I will show you the interior once we stop at Merstham. Which won't be long.
0.6 miles. Is the PIS changeable?
I mean, you can go down, you can click this button and you can choose different destinations. It'll also react to the... so this is one of the questions that was in the list, is that if you change the PIS, does it show all the other destinations? So the answer is no, it keeps the same intermediate destinations that it's got, but it takes those from the journey. So for example, earlier on, just to see what would actually happen, I went into Scenario Planner and I put this 377 on Southeastern High Speed at Gravesend, and I told it to stop at 2 or 3 places along the way going to Raynham, and when I got into the game, it correctly listed, or it was going to Raynham, and it was correctly listing all the places it was going to stop from that route. So then I came into the PIS button here and I changed the destination, and what happened is, instead of saying this was a Raynham train, it said it was a Faversham train, but it still had the same intermediate destinations on there. They don't suddenly change, because they wouldn't change, because it doesn't know what you're going to stop at. The only thing it knows that is the objectives you're going to get, which is to stop at those stations. Therefore, that's why they show up.
Yeah, and it's important to note as well, if you own East Coast Way, that the updates to the locos involved and whatnot, they at the moment would not backdate into East Coast Way. That would be something that we'd pick up a little bit later on, something the preservation crew might take a look at further down the line.
Indeed, yeah. Hey there, British Ace, how's it going?
Very much enjoying the videos you put live earlier, British Ace, thanks very much.
Can Gen 8 consoles get the missing layers in a separate timetable? So the problem with that is that you either get a timetable with everything in it, which just won't work, it'll crash, so there's not much point, or you get a timetable with only the new layers in it, which would be really dull, because it's missing most of the services. So it's a little bit tricky, because of the unbalanced nature of the services, to try and find any combination like that which would work. So I'm not ruling it out. If you find a combination that works, then it would make sense to do that. Yeah, it's not as straightforward.
No, it's an ongoing discussion, isn't it? It's something we're aware of, and given, as I say, that we are now on PS5 and Xbox Series X, it's something that we don't necessarily want to inhibit the potential of those platforms, but we're very conscious at the same time that we have a lot of players who play on PS4 and the Xbox Series S and Xbox One, and we don't want to, and obviously PS4 Pro as well, and we don't want to try and alienate anybody. We want to try and give everyone the best possible experience that we can do with what we're able to put together. So it's definitely a conversation that we're having internally. We don't have any definitive, here's our mark in the sand as of yet, but we are having those discussions.
It's really challenging, because on the one hand, obviously we want to do the best we can for PS4 and Xbox One, but we also don't want to be not doing things that can now be done easily on the Series X, Series S, PS5. We always said when we launched TSW2 with support for those platforms, we weren't going to hold them back. And in some cases, these extra layers are going to be a manifestation of that, because you've just got more memory and more resources on the bigger machines. Therefore, you can put more trains in memory. So it's we're still going to be doing the best we can. And in fact, one truth that might not be apparent is that we probably spend more time keeping Gen 8 supported and doing the best we can on that than we do compared to what we do for example, adding the extra stuff into Gen 9. So it's not that Gen 8 is ignored, it's just that not even remotely ignored. It's that we try to sort of squeeze out the best we can from each of the platforms, which is difficult. But this is where continuing the memory optimization and processor optimization, all these things, will help us be able to do that. So again, those things are continuing.
Absolutely. A couple of requests to turn up the game volume. I don't know if that's just because we're a little bit loud, or if the game is a little bit quiet, but we'll see what we can do.
Audio, it's on 100%. Let me... Right. That might make you louder as well, JD, but well.
Nobody wants that. The Skybox mod isn't going to be released with this update, I don't believe. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think Adam's been working on that with the Colne release.
Yes, so I think in the roadmap stream last night we talked about the Skybox mod and some of the things that are going on with, because London Midland that we're working with on some of those, that project. And I think they go into a bit more detail on what that exactly entails, how it will roll out, all that kind of stuff during that live stream. I have to admit, I haven't actually watched it as of yet. It's been a busy day, but I'm pretty sure they talked about it over that during that live stream.
Right, coming up on Coulston South. So I think we're on the quarry line now. I think that's what this is.
So while we're at Coulston South, do we want to take a look at the interior? Should we take a look at the interior?
Let's take a look at the interior.
Cool. Our Russian Dodgers actually just asked a question directly to me. What's your role at Dovetail? I'm Director of Community, so you might see some of the other members of the community team on some of these live streams. Basically, I manage them, and I get to do things like this, which is really fun, where we do the live streams, and I get to talk to you guys on a regular basis, which is always a good experience. So that's a very simplified version of what I do, but that's all you need to know. So that's the interior BIS.
Please keep personal belongings with you at all times. Any unattended baggage will be removed and may be destroyed by...
I'm imagining you basically sprinting through the the different carriages and wondering what the passengers are thinking when the driver is sprinting through the carriages.
What I like to do is to turn off the driver vigilance alarm and go for a wander while it's still going. That's even greater.
Yeah,
and a part of me
true.
wants to actually put some animations into the characters so they look at you in horror if you walk down the train while the train is going. That'd be quite funny.
Train face, JD's role is to dodge all of the difficult questions. I think we try and cope with all the difficult questions, to be honest. Happy to see what you've got and we'll try and answer it. Happy to see what questions come our way. We don't tend to try and shirk away from any questions. So when is the next quiz night? As you might have noticed, the Railfan TV schedule has been pretty busy over the last few weeks, and it's not about to get any less busy. So I think we've kind of earmarked perhaps some point in November as the next quiz night. But I'm definitely flexing my quiz muscles to try and get some ideas for. And because it's been such a long time, we might do an extended one. So we'll see where we get to with that.
Yeah, that was the Gatwick Express there, past us on the left.
The route definitely feels busy, and that's great. That's obviously the vibe that we want to try and get across with this particular route, with the amount of services that we've got.
Another one coming up there on the left.
Well, the train face. Oh, okay. This is the question. This is the tough question. How can it be a rush hour route without the rush hour level of passengers?
Rush hour trains. It's busy as
Well,
trains, and the passengers are coming.
Yeah,
It's not like they're not coming. It's it just needs to be. We're going to get them switched on in the following update.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's the busiest rail network we've got in the game.
Yeah. Oh, Connor O'Reilly. I hope I didn't mislead you when I was talking about London Midland is a player rather than London Midland the operator. Yeah, we're working with one of the players. I think they might be in the chat actually. London Midland, if you're here, give us a shout. We're working with them on a Skybox that they've been able to put together for TSW, and we're hoping to be able to get that implemented sooner rather than later. It's in the roadmap, and I know that Adam's team are taking a look at it right now in the preservation crew.
Matt, will you ever do a Nebworth again? Probably.
I think it's inevitable, isn't it? And then we just
Basically
blame the chat.
inevitable. Exactly, and it will be chat's fault, guaranteed.
So we have, what do we have? I made a little list of things that we wanted to kind of cover over the course of this stream. We've talked about layers already, so I won't go into that again. But here are my questions. Early again, yeah, quite considerably early as well, actually. We'll talk about PS5 quickly, just because I know that there are a few PS5 players out there who might not be aware of the fact that some of their add-ons are not displaying in their library. It's an issue that we know about. There is, if you go onto our forums, hopefully the mods have got a link that they're going to be able to share in the chat if you are experiencing this. We've got a workaround for the time being and a little explanation on the forums as to what the issue is. We don't have any confirmed next steps yet, but we're looking at possibilities of what we can do. Is basically a limit to the amount of add-ons that you can have from a size perspective on PS5. So we are looking at what we can do to mitigate that, and there is a workaround. It's not a very nice workaround, sadly, but it's something that hopefully will allow you to be able to play some of the more recent content if you are struggling to be able to get it all on your library or see it all in your library at the moment. So hopefully that will be put in the chat very soon, and we'll be working on what we can do to solve that.
I've seen a couple of very valid questions on the forums about why does that affect us and not other games that are much, much bigger. And
it's the core, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's several games that are bigger than this 64 gigabyte that we've been talking about. Why does it affect us and not affect them? And the reason is it's because of the size of DLC. Apparently, from what we can gather, what we've seen, there's not really any limit on the core size of the game, but there are limits on the size of DLC, and it only came into force in the latest system update. And that's why we've got more DLC than I think anything out there, in terms of not necessarily the number of pieces of DLC, but in terms of the size of those pieces of DLC. And that's why the 64 gig applies to us, but pretty much nobody else, because everybody else, what other games tend to do, is put everything in the core package and then use a simpler system called entitlements, which turns things on and off essentially. And requires no download and means that they don't require any additional space at all, so that you can have like hundreds of entitlements and that wouldn't fall foul of this stuff because they don't have their own disk space, whereas the DLC, the routes and so forth, you download a 10 gigabyte route, that 10 gigabytes is part of that, is going to contribute to that 64 gigabytes that applies as a DLC limit. Now the workaround that JD was talking about is not a be-all and end-all solution, obviously. We're looking at an interim solution which should hopefully get it all working in the meantime, but it's not a long-term solution because it immediately starts going wrong again as we add more DLC. And then we're looking at other options that we can maybe do to make this more of a long-term thing going forward. So we're working with Sony to see what those options are, what we can do about it. I'm not going to go into what they are because they'll change probably. So suffice to say, we recognise the pain, and it needs to be fixed, and everybody's working hard on making that happen.
Yeah, we thanks everybody who has experienced this for their patience as well. I know it's as soon as we've become aware of information, we've tried to then share that with you all, but appreciate it's been not the easiest process for anybody involved, and we'll try and help out where we can. There's a question about Xbox textures as well. There is a fix which is currently being QA'd at the moment.
That turned out to be a much more hairy fix. It was quite an unpleasant change, that one, from what I gather talking to the engineering team. It's related to how UE 4.26 has changed some internals, and as a result that one is in for more QA, just to make sure that hasn't had unforeseen side effects, just to make sure we're all good. But that fix is at least in QA, and I'm hopeful that will be available soon.
Yeah, I think we have got a couple of opportunities for patches in the coming weeks, so we're hopeful that we'll get it in one of those in the future. Okay, all right, should we talk about the route again? I think it feels like we should talk about the route again. So I've not even been paying attention to where we are, Matt. Where are we?
We are East Croydon.
East Croydon, lovely. And obviously this is quite an attractive looking overpass. I quite like the look of this.
It is rather good, isn't it?
I think the modelling on this route has been, particularly on the station side of things, been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, the team have worked hard. One of the challenges with this route is that there's 30 stations, which makes for a difficult challenge in making a route. I mean, it's quotes only 50 miles, which is still long, but it's not the longest route we've ever done by any stretch of the imagination. But 30 stations in a single route definitely is, especially when a lot of the stations are quite complicated, and not just your normal bus stop on a bit of tarmac type thing that a lot of them are. In this route, a lot of them have got unique shapes, unique styles, and it all needs to be captured as closely as possible. So that's presented a lot of extra challenge, and the team have done their best to try and step up for that.
Absolutely. I was a question and I was going to grab it. We'll talk about obviously the locos that are included in the rush hour base. I expect we call it not the base pack, but what everybody will be getting include the 377 and the 387. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the way that these are remodeled. They are not remodeled, the new models, but also remodeled sort of the interiors, and the audio is all new. So these feel like really substantial changes and really substantial improvements to I think what players might have expected in East Coast Way. And we've already talked about that might be something the preservation group perhaps might take on a little bit more detail at a later time, perhaps backdating some of this stuff to East Coast Way as well.
Yeah, I mean the model for the 377 hasn't changed particularly, but the sound and the physics have been redone, and in both cases, both trains we got new source audio for the trains, courtesy of Armstrong Powerhouse. So big thank you to Armstrong, and then our team have then applied them into the game. So I think the sounds are coming out a lot better for the 377 than they were, and obviously the 387's got its sound set. It sounds very similar to an Electra 377, but there are bits that are unique, and we've tried to capture those elements. In particular, for example, the horn is different. The stuff there. The 387's got a completely new interior. The 387 is where it's really a deceptive looking train, because it looks, as you can see from the one coming over here, it looks pretty much like a red version of what I'm driving. The reality is it's got different physics. It's just really different. Under the underframe is different. The window frames are different. There's a lot more detail on the windows because of the surrounds on them. The interior is different. Even the cab is different. So there's an awful lot going on in there. So it's not just a red version of the green train. And the team have tried to capture as much of that nuance as possible. The 387's also got the overhead pantograph support. So if you run it on a route with wires, you can raise the pantograph. And when you do that, it'll switch the physics over, and you'll get a train which is quite a bit more powerful than when it runs on third rail as well. So I'm really doing a terrible job of maintaining my speed here.
There are lots of people in the chat that are like speeding.
Yeah, I know.
A couple of people talked about A couple of people have talked about the light in the tunnels, as we've been going through the tunnels as well. Might have to wait for another tunnel to happen, and then we'll take a look and see what it's like. But I can't remember exactly what players were saying. I think it was
so.
Something
What they're saying is that it looks like the cab interior is not dimming properly when it goes into a tunnel. And I have asked someone to look into that. We have a handle on what's wrong. It's and now you'll have to forgive me a little bit because I'm going to describe how game engines work and how lighting in game engines
Take
work.
Take it away. Go for it.
Light. So when you look at how light works in reality, it stops when you get barriers like this, like this back wall. In game engines, actually having a light that respects barriers is very expensive. It's what you call a shadow casting light, even if it's not the shadow you're interested in. If you want the light to not emit through onto here, then it needs to be a shadow casting light. And those are really expensive, and bluntly you just don't use them very much at all because of that cost. It slows the frame rate down tremendously. The problem is there's a light inside the passenger compartment right near the door, and it's shining onto this, and this is reacting to that light. So when you go into the tunnels, this is being lit up by the light in the passenger compartment. Now there is a fix for that. There's another trick you can do where you can say that these polygons, these bits in the cab, you put them on what's called a different lighting channel, and the way that works is that a light emits on, say, channel 1, and if this is not on channel 1, it will not receive that light. And the problem is this is on the same channel as the lights in the passenger compartment, so that is getting fixed so that it won't do that anymore. But that's why it is. It's the light from the passenger compartment shining into the cab. And by switching the entire cab to a different lighting channel, that will go away.
I will never tire, Matt, of you explaining stuff like that to me, and I expect everyone else in the chat also feels the same. It's great. I mean, as I say, as somebody who's never done anything dev related in their life, it's nice to get a little bit of a context as to why some of these things are the way that they are. So it's good. Let's have a quick look. Questions. How much will this route cost to buy? I believe it's kind of standard route price if you're going to buy the route individually, which is £24.99. I can't remember the conversions to dollars and euros, but if you were to get the season ticket, which gives you access to the Dresden route, London Commuter, and also Boston Sprinter, I think that's £34.99, I believe. Pounds, that is. So the D in JD doesn't stand for dev. It most certainly does not stand for dev. You would not want me anywhere near deving any of this stuff. Aidan Barcross, do you need to buy the layers to actually see them as AI? If you're on PS5 or you're on
you need to buy whichever add-ons provide those layers. So Great Western provides one of the layer sets, and East Coastway provides another. I can't remember if there's any other ones. Joe will confirm that.
Yeah. Should we do a horn check? Let's do a horn check. There we go. I always ask for horn checks, and then I realise that I can't hear the game audio where I am, so I have no idea when you've actually pressed it, except for when it comes up on the screen.
I just pretend I do, just to troll you.
I have to assume that that everything's gone great, and that it is a brilliant horn, and yes, brilliant, great.
Lots of horn action and lots of breaking the speed limit action.
Just having too much fun, Matt. That's what it is.
Enjoying the horn too much. Oh, hello, we've got a train coming over here.
Speed limits?
Sight. And a Gatwick Express coming there.
Clapham Junction is where it's at.
We're nowhere near Clapham Junction, just saying.
Someone mentioned brilliant Doppler there. Now, I did do GCSE physics, so I know what the Doppler effect is. Well, I mean, I assume it sounded great, but because I can't actually hear it.
Right, 1.5 miles to Clapham.
Cool.
Breaking the speed.
I think we've touched on this format from potentially in other live streams, but the pantograph as well. I know that was a topic of discussion perhaps when we were first previewing or first showing the screenshots for the route. Can you just explain a little bit about how the pantograph will work on or not work on this particular route?
Pantograph won't work at all on this route. If you switch it over to pantograph, it won't raise because the system looks up above the train to see if there's a wire, and if it can't find it, it won't raise the pantograph. It may switch the physics over, but because it's not connected to the right thing, it won't work. You'll basically be dead on the track. You won't be able to move. If you've got off the rails mode, I don't think there actually are any routes at the moment. There aren't any routes at the moment where you can naturally use the overhead without going into off-the-rails mode in Scenario Planner, because Cathcart would be a fit potentially. I mean, the train never ran up there, but the Cathcart has got the right overhead wires, but you'd need to run it in off-the-rails mode for it to show up on the list anyway. So, once you do that, you can raise the pantograph, and once the pantograph is raised, then you'll get the AC overhead physics. It'll work anyway, because if you're in off the rails mode, Rob J, the minute the pantograph is raised, essentially the game in off the rails mode just tells the train, yeah, you've got power, just go for it, mate. It's all good. It doesn't matter whether it's AC, DC, what volts. It's just like whatever you need, it's there, it's connected. Just trust me, go. That's kind of one of the reasons for off the rails mode.
Yeah, we won't show it in this stream because obviously we're previewing the route tonight, but you can explore that one at your own leisure.
Mate at this station for a while, says Bradley Cox. Why? What happens at this station? Joe, fill me in. You're going to make me late, aren't you? I've got 2 minutes. What am I waiting for? Where do I look? I always end up late anyway. Thank you for that.
HST, I think everybody's waiting for. Keep an eye out in Waterloo direction. Joe has given us his guidance. I think we can see it on the map.
Not so far.
At 10:30.
But there's a yellow here, although that's probably an automatic signal. At 10:30. Hey, we're at 10:10.
13 now.
Oh, 10:13. All right. I'll be late for you lot. I'm fine with that.
All in the name of our wonderful players.
I am going to blame chat for being late.
Yeah, I mean I think it's justified in this situation, though, to be fair.
Another train. More trains.
Yeah, got to hope that we don't block the HST as well. So is that Matt in the distance over there on the where we're facing? Is that? I'm trying to get my bearings here. Is that Battersea?
This is that's Battersea here.
Yeah, Battersea Power Station. Yeah, okay, cool.
This is the Southwestern Tracks, so there's no trains on these. This is the line from Waterloo to Basingstoke, essentially up on London here. And we don't have any trains for that at this point, so that's why it's empty. But it needs to be there because it is there in real life. What platform is this going to be coming in on, Joe?
We could have really done with Joe on the stream, couldn't we? Really?
Always. This isn't always truth. That's that one. Dude, there it is. Hype.
Platform 9, apparently.
Platform 9.
Get those cameras out.
Is it not stopping here, then, Joe?
It's what I enjoy about these streams. It's very much okay, we've got a very brief, very sort of vague framework, but we're very open to just doing random stuff,
Just do stuff.
during the stream.
We're here to enjoy trains at the end of the day. As long as that's what we do, success.
People complain about the yellow line as well.
Nice. Crossover at platform 8.
The anticipation is palpable. I can feel it in the chat.
Please keep personal belongings with you at all times. Any unattended baggage will be removed. And
There will be a
may destroyed
HST
by
coming through
security
very
services.
shortly.
I don't know whether we should ask any questions while we're waiting for the HST, but we're sorry to inform our passengers that we will be delayed to allow the driver to train spot. Thanks, Zachary. That's a
Here he comes! Woohoo! I am driving the 1 Romeo 17 service, Reigate to London Victoria, timed at 09:29. Meanwhile,
if anybody wants to do this tomorrow.
HST hype! This is great. I'm so glad Joe put this in.
Try to say drop the hot if we can. A bit late, but that's fine.
I'm holding up the Gatwick Express. Nightmare.
There are some people who are going to be very angry, wanting to get a flight.
Not coming in this direction, they won't.
Oh, that's true. People who are very tired after a long haul flight, just wanting to get home.
Right, and away we go.
Off to Victoria.
I wasn't on foot, I was in a flying drone camera, train simulator driver. Although that said, when the running speed on this game is set rather higher than most people can actually run, so you all get to the experience of being Usain Bolt.
So what have we got? We've got about 2 miles.
What's on the big billboard? So this is the biggest billboard in Europe.
Oh yes, yeah, that's worth pointing out.
Which is, you know, Derek has put a particularly nice phrase on there. Make today so awesome, yesterday gets jealous. HSTs are diverted in some cases, and it's added as a sort of a special novelty, Rob. They don't normally run here. It's an occasional diversion when other parts of the route are not available. Right, coming up over here now. Freight train sitting down there.
People asking about release times. On PlayStation or PlayStation consoles, it will be midnight your time. Xbox, it will be at some point tomorrow morning, which is going to be a global thing. So we'll press a big red button somewhere, or Xbox will press a big red button somewhere, and it will become available. Well, that's when we'll be in the office. And Epic and Steam will be tomorrow afternoon. That's all British time. So we will by the end of tomorrow, everybody will have access to it and hopefully be playing and enjoying it.
A couple of people talking about a broken livery editor on PS4. Can you drop details in, please? Drop me a PM on the forums or something so I can find out what's going on there. Or Gatwick Express hype.
Is it okay to say someone has a nice bridge? I think so. So people asking what afternoon means. For me, afternoon is between about 1 and 5 p.m. But I can't guarantee that will be the case, but that's generally what we kind of work towards. I know that doesn't give a massive amount of detail, but as I say, there are certain things that need to happen and need to be pushed manually, that if we say it's going to happen at X time and it's 2 minutes past X time and people haven't seen it, they will be upset. So we try and make sure that we are as accurate, but also as kind of open a window as possible, really.
465 over there on Southeastern service out of Victoria. Not a drivable one, that one. That's just an AI, because it's immediately leaving the route rather than going down the route, but it adds to the life in Victoria. Matt 64, is it possible trains to lose their pathing? I mean, on trying, yeah, the game will dynamically re-slot things. So if you the world carries on regardless. So if you're not there at the right point, and the same even for your onward run, you know, if you can lose your slot. You know, if you drive sufficiently slowly, you can lose your slot completely.
And you have to wait a long time.
Well, you might not have to wait a long time, or you might have to wait an incredibly long time. It does depend on what other traffic there is there and how fast that train is. It can be what it generally means is you won't hit your times. Because you're now running behind where you should be, and you won't be able to catch up unless that train happens to divert at one of the other junctions, for example. So it's you should always be trying to nail the speed limits as far as possible.
Should we do a wander around Victoria?
Let's do a wander around Victoria next before we run our run in the Gatwick.
I have an anecdote that I was telling Matt before the stream started. I was at Victoria on Sunday, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it when we do the wander round, but there's a very specific part that hopefully has been modelled in this that I can tell you about, and why it was particularly special for me at the weekend. I'll leave you on that cliffhanger. Other questions? We'll talk about PIS a little bit more detail when we're doing the next run. There's a few questions about that. There aren't any rail tours services on this particular route, are there? Or there weren't. There wasn't.
There's no rail tour, no.
No.
Joe wanted to add the rail tour, but the priority was everything else. And there's already been a lot of work in the everything else, and Joe put an awful lot of work into this. So at some point, maybe we'll get the opportunity to bring the rail tour into this, as people have commented it. But it would be good, because then you could sort of like have the other half of the service that runs on East Coastway, so that it sort of feels like you're running the rest of that route, another part of that rail tour. But it's not in here currently, at least.
Gareth, it's not platform 8. I can tell you that right now. Should we talk about collectibles? Because obviously we'll be wandering around the station. What are the collectibles on this route?
Now you're asking.
I feel like we ask this question every time, and every time Matt's like, I'm not quite sure. Should have probably checked this out before the live stream.
Yep, basically. There's a poster.
You'll have your standard route maps. And
a poster and a route map, and a something and a something. Hopefully we'll see something as we go down here. Or someone will post it. Newspapers, yes, I remember seeing the newspapers, yeah. Doesn't look like there's anything else down here.
Seagull sign, people are saying.
Seagull sign? Oh, is that a poster, like a picture poster?
Don't feed the seagulls.
Ah.
Oh, you thought that was a map, didn't you?
I was all excited. There you go. Don't feed the birds. There you go, that's it.
Yeah. That is, I mean, if you have ever been to Brighton, that is a cardinal rule. Do not feed the birds, because otherwise they will never leave you alone. So, where can we wander, Matt? Where can we...
just around the platform, so you can't leave the platform area.
Okay. All right, I'm going to tell you about the anecdote now. So the special place for me was right over the far side of the concourse, which is, I think you can probably see it over the back of where we are at the moment. Some people might know this already, but I ran the London Marathon on the weekend, and I finished it, and great, was very happy, brilliant, but I felt really, really rough. Really, really rough. I think I had some sort of heat, like minor heat stroke kind of thing. My friend, I had to pop back to Victoria because that's where my hotel was to get my stuff. And my friends took one look at me, look at the colour of my face, and they were like, "No, not happening today. You're going to sit down here, and we're going to go and get your stuff for you." So I sat down. It was just outside Victoria, and then I felt very, very ill. And my special place was actually in the toilets at Victoria, throwing up after the marathon, and I was there for a good half an hour, and it was not a fun experience. So Victoria, you have a lot of unpleasant memories for me this weekend, after this weekend.
But hey, big round of GGs for JD on the marathon, eh?
Thank you. I mean, it was kind of a slight humble brag, but we'll go
well
with it.
Deserved though. Crikey, it's no small thing.
So yeah, and also the stairs as well were not fun, trying to go down on the underground on Victoria. So not a lot of pleasant memories from Sunday, unfortunately. Very, very busy, very, very hot, very, very everything you'd expect. But thank you very much, everyone in the chat. It's it's been a busy week to come back to, let's say. But it was one of those things that is just a fantastic experience all day. If anybody was actually there cheering people on, then kudos to you, because you really, really helped. You helped everybody. I think actually that could be an Easter egg for later on. I quite like if there was like you could go to the toilets at Victoria.
Let's not talk about toilets, yeah? Yeah, we'll open that box, and we don't need to open that box. Right.
So that was my anecdote. Let's move on.
Right, okay, let's get over here. Now, the AWS is here this time around, so where these safeties are is a little bit different on this one. So this is a different cab. If you compare the two side by side, you'll see this front view is quite different. You've also got the power selector switches up here, which are different. Take the cab on, put it forward. That's the lights all set up, and open the doors. Door dwells and so forth. The buzzers are all different for this train. There's no speed set cruise control on this one. Different horn. Different interior. Someone's saying about the door step lights. No, they're not in there. They're in the guard signal.
This is a night run. This hopefully gives us the opportunity to see what the route is like in the night time. That was one of the requests that we got from the forum threads, so we'd like to be able to facilitate that.
No, same blind noise. Yeah, and it has got the pantograph. That is in here somewhere. There it is. And again, if there's overhead wires, it works. It's all fully set up, and there's a whole second set of physics on the train for when it's driving under the power of the pantograph. You want the inner information board. Okay. Joe, why does this say Southern? Lock the doors. Shunting horn be the whistle here, which is really quiet actually from the inside. Green lights, let's get going.
Let's do this. So why is there no suitcase Tetris on this train? It's going to be loaded up with suitcases.
Yeah, we did want to put luggage on the train, but unfortunately we weren't able to get the techie. We wanted to use something similar to like the passenger system, where the passengers load up. We were going to have effectively like passenger sockets where it could make luggage appear and disappear, but we weren't able to get to that. So it's still on the list of something we want to look at, though, because it seemed like an interesting way of getting luggage in there. Even if we can't get passengers carrying luggage, we can at least have the train looking like passengers are carrying luggage.
So in terms of the lighting, again, is it a similar situation to the other loco in that we're seeing perhaps some reflections from the carriage on the
Possibly. I don't know.
dash?
I know the 377 that's the case. I've not actually spoken with the team about whether this one has the same issue or not.
Okay.
There is a tunnel just up by Preston Park, so be interesting to see how dark it
we can
gets.
see, yeah. Connor's asked how long will the season pass be active for? For the foreseeable. We'll let you know in a good enough time before we plan to stop offering the season pass. We haven't done that yet, so assume it will be there for the foreseeable. Alright, well we've got... Oh, that's a good shot. I like that shot. Should talk a little bit about PIS, because I know there have been a few questions in the chat already about it. We had some from the forum as well. So these are around the 377 and the 387. So this is from a player on the forums. If I'm correct in saying that the Class 377 has a section on the screen where it shows what coach number is what, it scrolls past just after what destinations the train are calling at. Has this been included, or does it just show the destinations?
It's just a station now. So as you've seen when I've gone and had a look, you can see it's only showing you the this train calls at ABCD, and that's it. It doesn't say this is coach 4 or something. That's not in there.
Okay. How does the onboard PIS go? Does it go, welcome aboard this Southern service to London Victoria, calling it blah 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 on repeat, or does it follow up with the next station is blah? This is a Southern service to London Victoria.
Yeah. Again, as you've seen when I've looked at it, it doesn't have the next train is stuff on it either.
Cool. Let's say I was on a service to Brighton, but I think we've answered this one actually already, but let's go over it again. I was on a service to Brighton, but I purposely changed the PIS to show I'm going to Chatham. Will the whole list of destinations change, showing the actual list of stops going to Chatham, or will it continue to show the list going to Brighton?
So in the example I gave earlier on, effectively what happens is that you'll say, so I set up this train on Southeastern High Speed using the 377 from London Brighton. And I set it to be start at Gravesend, end at Raynham, and so let's have a look at this tunnel. Yeah, so this cab is getting darker than the 377 does, so this one's probably okay. Whereas the 377 doesn't get dark enough. So when we got into the train, it correctly said, even though the train's not meant for that route, because it's the new PIS system, it was then scrolling the destinations of all the ones I'd ticked on the list, and the final station of Raynham. So that was correct, and that had picked everything up, and interior, exterior was all working fine, so that's good. But then the next question then is, well, what if we change this? If we go into this PIS and you go in and you change this destination, what does that do? So my train went from this train's going to Higham, Strood, Chatham, Gillingham, and Raynham. So I changed it so that its destination here was Faversham, and then it changed it so that it said this train is going to Higham, Strood, Chatham, Gillingham, and Faversham. So it changes the last bit essentially, because all of the rest of it is coming from the instructions of the train, which are not changing. You can't change. So yeah, you've only got control over where it declares the ultimate destination as being. So in the case of the so this changed, and similarly that bit changed, but the intermediate stops don't, because they still remain the same. So I think that's a reasonable compromise of what it could do, given that you can't change those intermediate stops.
Cool, that's a very thorough answer, thanks Matt. And then just final one on PIS. So PIS on the 166 or other southeastern layers. Why have we not got any PIS on that particular group of locos as it stands?
So the 166 hasn't. It's only all it's done is been added by a layer system into this. So no work has been done on the 166 itself. The same thing came up actually with Dresden recently, which added the 155, and a couple of people have said, "Well, how come this doesn't have rail driver?" And again, it's because the 155 didn't get an update itself. It's just been utilised. So in the case of the 166, it's actually quite a lot of work to add to the PIS to that one because it's a very old train now. It's one of the first ones that we made in the game. So there's quite a bit of work to do that. And I know PIS on the Great Western is something that Adam's hopefully going to be looking at some point in the future. I don't know where it is on his plans. But that one's going to be a bit more time consuming than some of the other ones have been. So that's why it's not there, because the system that it's built with just is the old horrible texture-based system and not the new dot matrix system, which can be dynamically reused across routes. So it needs upgrading, but that's not an easy process.
Cool. Someone's asked, can we put the night headlights on, please, so we can see a little bit more of the
I've got the
routes.
wrong headlights on. I do, don't I? Night headlights, okay.
There we go. Wonderful. If players want to take this on to Scenario Planner, is there pathing available for the content in this route?
It should be. I've tried myself, but yeah, it should be. If there isn't, let us know.
Cool. Let's see if there are more.
Or if
questions.
there are paths that you want to go to that you find are missing, shout. Adding paths is relatively straightforward. So if there's things you'd like us to add, then let us know.
Awesome. Just another little bit of admin whilst we are hurtling through. We're still in Sussex, aren't we? Whilst we're hurtling through Sussex, so there's been quite a lot of content, quite a lot of articles over the last 24 hours or so around content that's coming out next week. So we confirmed today that the DBBR 187 is coming next week, as is the 1938 stock as well. So they're produced by Skyhook and Rivet respectively, and you can see a little bit more information about those, as well as confirmation on what routes the 187 will be available on, or what could substitute into, on our forums and on the article as well. So if you want to find out a little bit more, you can go to the website, but there's all the information and lots of nice pretty screenshots on there as well. Somebody's just put it in the chat. Thank you, Derek. Put it in the chat if you want to take a look. Inigo asked, does this use the new Dresden lighting and the ballast colour technology? Lighting, no. There has been a bit of work done on the lighting.
There's more lighting. There is more of a lighting pass than probably there would have been. So there have been some learnings from what happened on Dresden, but what happened on Dresden wasn't really enough time for the internal team to fully absorb that to then work on, because this route was well underway by that point. So and you can't just add the lighting right at the end. It's kind of got to be thought about from the beginning of the route. So we have stepped it up a bit more, but it's not where Dresden is.
No. And the ballast colour technology as well?
No, that wasn't used on this route either. Again, ballast colour technology was added after all the track was laid on this route. So there was no. It was too late at that point because it wasn't available when this route had its track built. So a lot of the rush hour routes were kind of all the track was laid side by side. So even though they're coming out one after the other, they were kind of developed at the same time for the most part.
Cool. So I suppose a follow-up question would be: is it something that we would look to implement on future routes as a sort of regular thing? Is it something that is quite a substantial amount of work, so we would perhaps pick and choose which routes we do it for, or is that kind of the standard that we want to try and hit now with future content?
I mean, we want to use it where it's appropriate. It's like we had for a while now the ability to change the sleepers between wooden and concrete and so forth, and we've been using that where it's appropriate. So again, it's in the toolbox now, so when the team lay the track for a route, they can adjust the ballast accordingly. Cool.
Super Voyager asked a good question. We don't tend to get asked these kinds of questions, so I'm going to ask it. What was the hardest part about building this route? It's the kind of question that I would come up with, to be honest, but so I'm glad somebody else has asked it.
So I'm probably not the best person to answer that because I didn't build any of this route. However, I'm going to go ahead and say the timetable was definitely one of the hardest bits in the route. Joe has been working very, very hard to get that where it needs to be. It was always seen as one of the big challenges on this route is how do you get it feeling London Brighton busy, and Joe I think has delivered that. But then I think from the environment side, the 30 complicated stations has been a tremendous challenge for them. Someone said earlier on that it's only a few more than Bakerloo. Bakerloo stations were quite a bit simpler, and particularly the underground stations, whereas a lot of this is all bigger and with more complex stuff going on. So, and that scales up badly. It becomes very difficult to do that. And again, the team have had to try and find ways of improving how they work so they can deliver that. And across a 50-mile route with all this level of busyness on it, it's a challenge. But I think probably stations and the timetable will probably be sort of the two elements.
Okay, cool. A few people asking about the rattling sound. Now, I obviously can't hear this because I can't hear the audio. But is there? I assume there's a rattling sound that is.
There's a rattling sound that is in the cab. It plays occasionally. It's kind of a random sound. It's not related to anything in particular. Rattling in the cab. It's just meant to give you a bit more of a feeling that you're moving. It doesn't. These 387s in particular don't rattle very much. But the rattle is there just to provide an extra variety on the sound. Really. Going over the Hughes Valley Viaduct now.
Nice. Location to suggest future routes. Yeah, there's a place on our forums which is the suggestions forum to suggest future content. We tend to review those semi-regularly, so if you want to put your ideas in there, it's a good idea to kind of get a bit of a sanity check from other players first up.
No, I don't know why the TMS is saying it's a 377. In fact, it's saying it's a 3774220, which doesn't even make sense. So I guess I'm going to look at that. Seven miles out of Gatwick now. Only one stop between here and Victoria.
Barry's asked about the layers question again. We've spoken about this a couple of times during the course of the stream, but we'll say it again. In terms of the layering, the PS5, the Xbox Series X, PC will have access to all of the layers that they have available to them, which will include obviously having access to the routes that you need to in order to make those layers viable. However, previous generation consoles, so PS4, PS4 Pros, Xbox Series S, and Xbox Ones, will see the 377 and 387 playable services and the AI services as well. So that's what we'll see, and we spoke a little bit at the start about kind of what the next steps are for how we take a look at these in the future, and we will be reviewing how we do this for the routes that we've done so far and working out what the best option might be.
Someone's saying, is the window really that small? Yes.
Yeah. Welcome to British Rail.
It's not an uncommon feature. It's more a southern thing. If you look at a lot of old southern units, even going back to the slam door trains, this is not an uncommon thing. They tried a number of different ways. Like if you look at the Class 442, those ones, they had a sort of they tried to kind of come up with something which was a bit bigger, with a side window as well, a bit more of a wraparound view. But it's not common. This is a more common thing, and part of it is because you've got this corridor connection in the middle. If you look at the front of the train, you've got this corridor connection in the middle that's taking up what would be your window space. So you end up with very little to look through, but it's enough to look through, to be honest.
Crazy Killer has asked, why is the TPWS not fully implemented when we did it for
I don't know
CC?
the answer to that question. It's something I have got on the list to talk to find out what's different and why. It was originally supposed to be implemented with TPWS 4, so I'm assuming that it was because this thing doesn't beep at you, for example, when you turn it on. It speaks to you, but I'm assuming that's they've not been able to source the sound perhaps or something for that, so that's not in there. But no, I need to find out why at least TPWS wasn't the same as CCL. I'm coming up on a yellow light now.
Is Russian Doge asked, is the AWS2 functional?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to assume not, but...
Okay, cool. So
is this a Thameslink depot at Three Bridges?
I like that. That feels very kind of, I'm not gonna say eerie, but it's kind of that big, vast, empty, lit up space. It looks quite cool.
Red light at Three Bridges. Who's in my way? Probably me. This is basically me waiting for an HST, probably. Or this is the game making up for getting its own back on me. You see, it would be empty, Micro. There's no Thameslink trains to put in it. I mean, you could put other trains in there, but that'd be wrong. No, Series S is next gen console, Manny Pup.
Sorry, I might have misspoken.
Series S is treated as it is a Gen 9 platform, and it gets all of the same texture definitions and timetables, etc., as the Series X and PC.
Ignore me. That was my fault. Blame JD. Sorry. Joe said, here we have an example of adverse signals.
Back up to double. You'll have to make some Thameslink trains then, says Hentis. Agreed. I think that'd be a good idea. Now we just got to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I will say they are currently not on the roadmap.
No, there's nothing on the roadmap.
Nothing on the roadmap. So if it's not on the roadmap, get your bingo cards out, everyone. If it's not on the roadmap, it's not. We're not working on it at the moment.
Totally.
I love to be the spoil sport. Generation Records. Is Sam still working for DTG? Yeah, of course he is. He's on the stream on Friday. So
he had the audacity to have a holiday.
I know.
It's just
I know.
ridiculous.
I know. I'm sure he'll tell you all about it on Friday. But he's on Friday to do a preview of the 1938 stock with Matt from Rivet.
Yes.
So that will be a good stream, I'm sure. We have a Let's Play of this route tomorrow as well. Matt's going to be doing it as is tradition. I think I've said that I'll join, but if you want to see somebody else on the stream, if you're tired of my voice, then please feel free to suggest anybody else and see if anybody else is interested in popping along. I could tell you about the vomit story again if you like.
Traction motors as we leave Gatwick. Yes, someone remind me. I will have forgotten within 30 seconds of leaving, of stopping. Cathcart does not have rush hour passengers now, BDO Houston. I think Bakerloo and Colne now should, actually.
Yeah, segueing nicely into yesterday's patch, which should now be available for everybody. It's different versions on different consoles or different platforms, but everybody should now have access to that. Again, mods, if you are able to, if you could put a link in the chat, that would be wonderful, just to highlight what the patch notes were yesterday. There are some Colnarchen and Bakerloo now have rush hour passengers. There are a few other changes, particularly around the Dresden route and catenary for Boston as well. We're aware that there are some other things that we would like to work on. They missed the cut on this particular patch, but there are things that we are working on for both of those routes still.
Should have added a bogey cam. No, you can do that yourself. See? Top up.
Simples. Joshua says even before you spad now because of bogey cap.
That should get us in the platform at least. I love that. As if you're coming in here and you get the aircraft flying overhead.
Oh, and forgot to mention the biggest thing from the patch yesterday. Obviously, the Meisen branch is available on Dresden. Sorry, completely forgot about that. Yeah, that's available now. Go and play it. Enjoy it. Lots more services on the route, and yeah, it should feel a little bit more rush houry now in terms of the traffic on the route.
Rush houry. This needs to be a thing.
We are going to make that an adjective. Joel, no, the texture fix on Xbox on next gen consoles. We have a fix that's being tested at the moment, but it's quite a complex one, so we weren't able to put it out with the patch yesterday. It is going through testing at the moment though.
No, it has the potential to cause all sorts of problems if it goes wrong, so it's getting a little extra attention before it goes out.
Yeah.
It was down in the depths of Unreal.
The Grouse said, is there a dedicated team for carrying over new features to old routes? Well, it's like I wrote that question myself. There is. It's called the Preservation Crew. We get Adam on the stream sometimes to, particularly on the roadmap streams, talk about the stuff that his team's working on. But their kind of remit is to take a look at some of our older content and try and bring it up to improve it in terms of bug fixes or issues that we know that there are with the route, but also to try and bring in some of the more modern features that we bring into some of the more recent routes onto the older routes so that they're kind of at that standard too. And they're working through their backlog at the moment. If you check out some of the roadmaps, you'll be able to see actually what they're currently looking at. And as I say, if you watch some of the streams, they're a really good indicator of what Adam's team are looking at.
Right, I feel better for getting a couple of collectibles.
It's just the itch you've got to scratch, isn't it? Gareth has asked, does Gronky Donkey appear on the route?
I don't know. And I'm not allowed to tell you anything it is.
That's true, yeah.
I keep getting told off.
The first rule of Gronky is to never talk about Gronky.
Right, that's east. That's Gatwick. So we're on our way to Victoria now. 23 miles. I just until we get caught and catch up whatever's in front of us.
Oh, I love that Hentis. It's Donkey's moonwalking one of the planes coming into land at Gatwick. I would love that. AFS5 is asking, can you show the exterior of the IS again? I think we can.
London Victoria and London Victoria.
And London Victoria.
Excellent. We are definitely going to London Victoria. Windows open. Let's shut those a minute. Get a bit get quiet. It's quite an insulated cab, this one.
God, can you imagine? I mean, some people this would be absolute dream. Some people it would be absolute hell. But in terms of living near Gatwick, and also near this near this kind of railway line, the noises at all times of night. Oh, I live not too far from a railway line, the Peterborough to London line. There's a lot of fast trains that go there at all time, all kinds of freight trains going at all times of night.
Slightly jealous.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of it being rather quite cool, but at the same time, when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and they're beeping horns to each other, you just think, guys, come on.
Nah, it's fine. It's all good. They shouldn't be beeping horn after about 11 o'clock anyway.
Yeah, I know that's not good etiquette, but they do it anyway.
Really? Ooh, that's very naughty. Well, unless there's something on the line or workmen, I think they have to blow the horns there. So, I used to live on a main fire truck when we lived in London, and that was always fun. All times of the day, having fire engines blaring down past the road. But the said road was 6 feet from the front door.
Yeah, I can imagine it's quite a shrill sound as well. It puts you on edge, doesn't it? So
you get used to it after all. We lived there 13 years, I think, and eventually it's just fire engine goes by and you don't even notice it.
I live, so Matt Jamkus asked where I live. I live in a place called Biggleswade, which sounds like it's out of Harry Potter. But it's it's on basically, if you think about it, between Peterborough and Stevenage, it's pretty much equidistant between the two of them.
Sounds like you should be flying planes.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's a very odd named place, and I'd love to know the etymology of it, but.
Some of our viewers might be too old to understand that. 80 miles an hour here. Oh, 166.
And I do work from home. I've been to the office once, so I've never actually met Matt in person,
I know.
which is sad. But yeah, I've been to the office once, and that was about a month ago. So I'd like to go a little bit more often. But obviously, at the moment, there are certain things that we need to make sure that we're doing, and there might be a few opportunities to go in the future. It's a really cool office.
Yes, I was there today, all day, in a meeting.
I did see you walk past one of the camera. I did see you walk past a camera when I was in another meeting.
I was talking with Mike about something earlier on, and I think I got on the camera where there was a meeting going on. And, well, that's fine. You know, I cause trouble everywhere I go.
Speaking of trouble, Liam has asked, "Did I see you, Nebworth?" I didn't, unfortunately. I'm not that close to Stevenage.
Nebworth.
Yep, right near Shuttleworth. I live right near Shuttleworth. So people who are talking about the Shuttleworth collection, yep, been there, seen that. I run past it on my marathon training. So I actually run. You're not meant to. I probably shouldn't say this. I actually ended up running over the airstrip at one point because we got lost. So.
Oops.
Yeah, I know. So. Okay, we've digressed quite a lot. I have to. It's enjoyable being able to just answer questions. That's quite nice. But we've got 16 miles to Victoria.
More questions.
Yeah, more questions about the route, not about me or about Matt or where we live or whatnot. Let's ask questions about the route. We can answer those.
classic DTG streams where devs look cramped in the corner of a room. That was so the early ones was me in the conference room with the black magnet wall behind me when we did the TS1 streams, and then sort of when we moved into the new office. We had a dedicated streaming room rather than me having to set up in the conference room every day, and then the dedicated streaming room was basically like myself and Dimitri almost hugging. You had to be that close to get onto the one camera because it was so cramped. The room wasn't cramped, but obviously the camera was close to us, so it was. And of course, you wouldn't want to be that close to anybody in this day and age. That seems odd.
Yeah.
We're all used to not being close to anybody anymore. So I know before the pandemic, the plan was to set up multiple computers with their own cameras and then bring it together properly so that it looked more like it does here with multiple cameras on the screen. But just as that was starting to be set up, it was time to work from home.
Yeah. Okay, we have got some route-related questions. Top speed on the route?
90, I think.
90. I think that's from what I've seen. 90 is the most that we've been able to get to. Service done in the rain or snow. You know what? Should we do one tomorrow in the rain or snow, Matt?
Yeah, can do.
I know it's meant to be a summer-themed route, but we
it
can
rains
do one
in the summer.
Yeah, rain in the summer. Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, that probably makes it perfect, doesn't it? Really, to be fair. Release times. We'll talk about the release times at the end because we've talked about them a few times over the stream. I'll just finish up with that at the end of the stream. Favourite part of the route, Matt? I know you hate these questions. Favourite part of the route?
I don't know. I quite like sort of this general area. Quite a lot going on. Victoria to East Croydon. Narrow it down. This bit's quite interesting. But no, the whole route is really interesting. To be honest, it's a fun route to drive.
I've seen what the mastery tile looks like. I think the mastery tile looks pretty spectacular on this route.
Yes, the light show at Power Station.
Yeah, I really liked the look of that, particularly in the dark. I think that looks really cool. How long is the route? I don't have the exact number to hand. I normally do.
50 something.
You said about 50 something miles, didn't you? Any plans to have a stack trolley service character on the trains? Would love that, but I don't know if that's... No, I don't think there are any plans at the moment. A few questions about how is Dimitri. I've passed you directly over to Matt on that one. I don't know.
I haven't spoken to him in ages. Actually, last I spoke to him, he was doing well. He was enjoying his job. So I would assume that's still the case. But I haven't spoken to him for a while. Every now and again, he pops up on Discord and says hello, and then he carries on taunting me because remember the gag back then was Matt, when are you going to add X feature? When are we going to get working toilets in the game, Matt? And every now and again, he pops up on Discord and says, "Have you got toilets yet?" He's a character.
There's a couple of people said the TMS has said it's 377. Yeah, we've noted that already.
It's actually displaying a complete nonsense number at the moment. It's got an extra digit that it shouldn't even have in there. So I will raise that with the team and find out. Scan on.
Okay. Any more questions?
Do you need the 465 to see the 465? You do. Yes. Basically, the layer gets added if you've got the content, and I think to make the 465 work, you'll also need Southeastern High Speed because it's DLC for that route.
Yeah. Ming Rose asks, when can we expect the patch for the route with like the rush hour passengers, etc.? Are we talking weeks or months? I mean, I guess given that it was so close to kind of hitting this particular build, we weren't able to get it through. It is. I imagine all the work has been done. It's just a case of
it's just ticking a box. It's just ticking a box, but ticking that box will have other implications, and we just want to make sure it doesn't cause any problems by doing so. And doing it at the last minute didn't feel like a good idea. It might take something which was stable and destabilise it. So, is it weeks or months? I'm going to err on the side of weeks, not months. It's a simple enough thing to do. We just need to then test it. But I don't have a plan that I can or a date that I can share with you at the moment. But as soon as possible. It was absolutely supposed to be there, and I'm disappointed that it's not, same as you are. So we will get that fixed.
Yeah. What is SDO?
Single selective door operation. So at the moment, so what you would normally do is you can select doors to open and close on here, so that you can not open all the doors essentially. And so that's not a function that we've got. There is also the ability for it to simply not open the doors that aren't on the platform, and so people are saying that quite rightly that we've got this system that we put into Boston where it lowers the staircases and opens trapdoors where it's a low platform and doesn't when it's a high platform, and that's kind of the power. There's some of the tech that might power something like SDO, but there's more to SDO than just that. And so at the moment we don't have any plans to add that in, sorry, there are no immediate plans to add that in, but it is something we've been working towards, sort of generally circling towards, I should say, because the actual goal is, because in a train like this, the button says door release. You're not opening the doors, you're making them openable. Yeah, and then passengers will press the button, it'll open the door, and then they'll get out, and then at some point the door will auto close again, and then door close will just close and lock the doors that are open and lock the doors that are already closed. So I keep thinking I'm stopping here, but I'm not. This looks quite good. Like I said before, I think the lighting at East Croydon had a special pass. So at the moment that's not there, but like I said, it's something that the team have been circling towards getting to, but there's no progress on that. My goal, I think the goal for the team is to make it to where you release the doors, the passengers open them or walk out, and they work correctly like the doors should essentially.
Cool. After we ask for questions, there's a glut of them.
Good.
When can we expect automated passenger announcements? Would be a great feature to an already great game. You've done the classic thing there, Jens, of sort of giving us a nice little compliment so that your question gets read out. I like it. When can we expect automated passenger announcements?
Not on the plan. Again, it's something that the overall tech has been circling towards, because we've got PIS now, which now is aware of all of the destinations and so forth, which is a massive step towards it. And the audio is sort of kind of like the next step, really. Having got a good system in there now that's dynamic and responds to what's going on, we now need to actually, get some recordings done and build the system around it. At this point in time, it's not on a roadmap.
Bingo. Someone's asking about why we perhaps didn't give information about the layers beforehand. For the layers in advance, we could have got them for those who didn't have the DLCs. They're in an article that we launched a couple of weeks ago, AJ's Gaming. If you check out the Electrostar article, it's got all of the details of the add-ons that you need for the various different layers on there.
We've also, we left it as late as possible to take the layers out, because we've been working hard to not do that. And took the decision that as late as possible that they need to go in order to make it work properly, for the time being at least. And so that's why we didn't make. If we'd had to make the sort of say something earlier, it would have been a guaranteed gone. But we didn't, because we were trying to not do that.
Yeah, so we tried to give it as much time as we possibly could. Sadly, we had to make what was quite a tough decision.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think in terms of the way that I know it's probably not necessarily going to help, but obviously we want to try and make sure that the core route is as playable and as enjoyable for everybody as we can do, and that's the priority. That is what we need to make sure that is the best possible experience for everybody, and the layers are a nice additional bonus. In an ideal world, they would be part and parcel of the pack, but we have to try and make sure that, as I say, the core functionality of the route works with the various different layers before we start chucking them all in there. So yeah, it's a difficult decision to make. We didn't make it lightly, but we felt that the actual performance on the route was more important at this stage.
So, one other question someone asked there is, can you not just ask the TOCs, the train operating companies, for passenger announcement recordings? Just get the files off them. And the short answer to that one is, it gets really, really complicated for really strange licensing reasons. Because what happens is, so there's a worked example. I can give you probably an actual case study of this one. On the LGV route, we wanted to get the announcements on the platform there that would. In fact, it was the tone. There's a unique tone. Alarmed us with a tone when they do announcements, and we wanted to get that on there. And we contacted SNCF. And basically they didn't have the ability to license that to us. They only had the license to do it themselves. Because you think you either own it or you don't, and that's really not how licensing works. It's you have the right to use it, or the right to do a set number of things with it, which may or may not include giving it to other people. So even if whether they want to give it to us or not, they weren't able to do that. And actually, what happens? We also tried to get the authentic some of the platform announcements from the Bakerloo line. And again, a similar problem came up there, where we needed both the permission from TfL and the license from the original voiceover artist who did the announcements in real life, and that worked out being completely impractical, unfortunately. That it was a significant sum of money was required to do that. On the flip side, when we did the Great Western announcements, and you hear these actually in several places throughout the game, they are the real announcements. They are specially recorded for us, but by the same lady that did the announcements on the real route. I don't think they're still there anymore in the real route, but they were certainly the authentic ones at the time from the same person. So when we can do it, we will. But invariably these things, I would if we're going to do PIS audio. If anything, it's going to be with custom audio. It's not going to be with the real audio. But if we can, we will. But that's proving to be difficult, very difficult. And I wouldn't want that to be a roadblock to doing anything in the powered audio announcements. Again, I'm going to suffix that with, we're not doing anything with audio announcements. This is, not on the roadmap. But giving you an insight into some of the thought processes and some of the other things that are going on. Because we're always looking into things.
Yeah, and I think it's important that players are aware of some of the challenges that come with some of this stuff as well. Licensing is a big thing as well. We have a licensing team, and it can get quite complicated very, very quickly. So it's always a bit of a challenge. So sometimes the challenge is worth taking on. Sometimes it's I don't want to use the word easier, but sometimes it's a better decision to make for the benefit of the overall route, so that we're not sort of clogged up with lots of approvals and all of that kind of stuff all the way through.
Yeah, it gets very difficult because you've got to manage all of the license agreements and what you can and can't do with them and so on and so forth. So authentic is always best. We always try for authentic first. But I wouldn't hold up just for the sake of that if we can get it done other ways. Someone said, did I do the voice tutorials on this route? No, actually the voiceover artist on this is Andre, the same gentleman that did the voiceovers for Bakerloo Line.
Oh, nice. Void asks, will flaws in routes still be addressed, like super steep staircases, flying assets and misaligned elevators, or do you see routes as final build once they are preserved? I think the answer to that is we don't see.
They're never set in stone. Preserved. Adam and his team will go in and do something, and just because they've had one pass on it doesn't mean they won't potentially have another pass on it. Anything can be done, but there are many routes to look at and many things to do, and it's a question of prioritising that time, because everybody's got wants to see their route upgraded a bit. So that's the challenge, is sort of dividing the team, getting the team's time apportioned so that we can, some routes don't have rail driver support, some routes, there's a lot of locos still don't have livery designer support, level crossings that are animated. There's some of the more fundamental things in the game that aren't there yet, and and so it's trying to get everything. I think some routes don't even have the new Sky system yet as well, so it's really trying to get all of the routes at least up to a TSW2 level. But I know at the same time Adam's team have been looking at what else they can do to sort of polish and uplift routes as they go.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about layers again when we finish Danny's animations. Harry asked, will the new PIS work on PS4? Don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah. I don't see why it wouldn't. Where are we looking at? I'm just trying to scan through some of the questions.
2.7 miles out of Victoria now. I guess we're in a queue for Clapham now.
Chuckcake will go through release times as well when we finish up. So we'll do that when we pitch up at Victoria. The Growl asks, is it possible for this game to be upgraded to UE5? We've just done UE 4.26 and that was a
UE5
challenge.
doesn't even exist yet. UE5 isn't even out yet, so it's not even worth considering about anything about UE5. We will not be rushing to UE5. An engine upgrade from 423 to 426 was about 8 man-months or 8-person months work. There was an enormous amount of work to do that, and that's not to say we won't look at UE5. But I'm expecting UE5 to be a much bigger upgrade in terms of how much work it will do. But I'm sure there'll be benefits to that. But there also you need to rethink. One of the things we need to think about is once UE5 is available, what's the best way to take advantage of UE5? Because it's got Lumen, it's got all sorts of new technology, and if we just take what we've got and go straight to UE5 with it, it won't use any of that stuff. It's, I would say, in the distant future for UE5, because I kind of want to see UE5 out, and historically things with UE have taken longer than thought to get things out. I know the audio engine upgrade that was coming for Unreal was originally promised for 4.14, I think, and eventually came out, I think, in 4.18, which is like 2 years later, or something like that. So it's we're not making any plans at the moment for what will happen with UE5. We're just watching it. I know some of the engineering team are playing with it and looking at it and getting familiar with it. So we'll be able to hit the ground running when the right time comes. But that's going to be a big upgrade. That's going to be a big job.
A couple of people have asked for live stream preview of the 187. So we've been asking. So obviously, what we'd love to do with this is like we've got with Matt at River on Friday. We'd love to get a member of Skyhook on to be able to talk about the 187 and what they've been able to do. So we're chatting to them at the moment, seeing if we can get one of their team on to kind of answer some of our questions about it. Obviously, this is something that they've built and produced, so it doesn't quite feel fair for us to do the preview particularly on it. At the very least, what we'll have is a Let's Play stream when we launch. So stay tuned to the Ramfan TV schedule for next week.
Are you guys still working on the memory problems for Munich at PS4? We're working on memory across the board at the moment, Sean. Some of the sort of the things we're looking at will broadly affect larger portions of the game, which will hopefully affect everything in a positive way, as well as looking at some of the learnings. Like a collision thing I mentioned before, which is something we can then go back over other routes and then potentially look at improving. So we're learning a lot about what we can do to improve the memory usage, and then we'll work out how we can apply that. Some things will apply automatically because they're just the core way of how we handle things will then improve across the board. But other things, if they're specific to a route, we'll work out the right way to bring those across. So yeah, constantly trying to improve the memory usage because we want to see more trains in the routes as much as you want to see more trains in the routes. So, and as we get a bigger and bigger catalogue, so that problem just gets bigger. It's constantly under progress. See Battersea with all the cranes in the distance there.
All of the little red lights.
All the red lights.
That's cool. Chief Longshin asks, is the shard visible? in the
I
skyline.
don't think it is. I've not seen it. Not sure why, but I don't think I've seen it in there, no.
Cool. And just another 187 question from Jacob asked, is it going to be layered onto other routes? There are substitutions available on other routes. There is a forum thread that we put live with the article today, which goes into a bit more detail about what it will be available on and what substitutions you can make on each of the routes. I think pretty much on every German route there is. I think it's every German route. Again, Matt, please tell me if I'm floundering here.
Almost. If not every,
Almost.
It's almost every.
Yeah.
This is the 187, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went through every single route today, and I think I found the 187 present in all of them except Rapid Transit, which doesn't have freight on it.
Ah, Rapid Transit. I knew there was going to be one. I knew it. Ta-da!
So the mastery is all the lights along the front here.
We won't show mastery because
No.
we don't tend to show mastery in these preview streams. We like to keep a couple of things back just so that you can enjoy them yourself. But we'd love to see your screenshots of them because I think this one looks particularly spectacular. So if you want to tag me in those images, I'd love to see them.
Rapid Transit PZB fix, Yana Dunk. I believe there's a fix done for it. I need to find out where it is in terms of getting into QA and released. But I asked Adam about that, and there had been an improvement there, or a fix in that one. So hopefully, not too long, but I'm not making promises.
Yeah, and I don't think we've touched on this so far. How many scenarios are there for this route?
This comes with 6, if I remember rightly.
6. Yeah, kind of standard what we would do with most routes. Between 5 and 6 normally.
Yeah, normally it's 5, and I think this one is 6.
Lovely. Okay, so we're pulling into the station now. We're going to finish after we've pulled into Victoria. So I'm just going to go through a couple of little messages that we touched on a few times during this stream. So release times. This will be coming to PlayStation players at midnight your local time. So some people might already have access to it if they're based in Eastern Europe, Asia, and Australasia. Xbox is a manual thing that needs to be pushed our end or on Microsoft's end, so that's going to be tomorrow morning. And morning, for the purposes of everybody who's asking for more specificity, morning is between 8 and midday, and from afternoon for Epic and for Steam. And afternoon, for the purpose of this, is between midday and 5 p.m. So by the end of the day, everybody should have access to it. In terms of layers, the 9th gen consoles, so Series S, there we go, I said it this time, Series X on Xbox, PC, and PS5 will have access to all the layers if you've got the corresponding add-ons that will allow them to be enabled. 8th gen consoles, so PS4, PS4 Pro, and Xbox One will have the 377 and the 387 and everything that entails, which is about 1,200 services, Matt, from what I can remember.
Yes.
Yep, and everyone else, though the 9th gen will have access to about 1,400 odd.
Someone said I haven't got my headlights on. Got my headlights on.
I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to touch on. There are loads of articles that have been made live in the last couple of days, so if you want to just take a look at the website, there are things on the 187, on the 1938 stock, all of the stuff that we've said about Brighton or about the London Commuter route that you can sort of read up on before their releases either tomorrow or next week respectively. So Matt, I don't know if you want to put some face cams on for us before we finish up.
Boom.
Hello everybody, we are still here. Okay, thanks very much everybody for tuning in tonight. We will be back tomorrow night with a Let's Play. Imagine the vibe will be fairly similar, it'll be pretty chilled hopefully. We'll be able to show you some bits and pieces. We'll be taking some requests of things that you'd like to see as well, so we'll do our best to try and make sure, and we'll see if we can do it on an Xbox as well, so that we've got a little bit of variety and you can see what it's like on another platform as well. But it will be live hopefully for everybody at some point tomorrow. and we will be looking forward to seeing what you think of it. I know there's a lot of love that's gone into this route, and a lot of lots of hard weekend and after hours work has gone into this route, so we hope you all enjoy it, and yeah, just give us a shout if there is anything that you'd like us to take a look at tomorrow. It might well be me and Matt again tomorrow. We might bring on some special guests, who knows at this point. The way this week's been going, anything can happen. So thank you very much, Matt, for joining me.
Thank you, JD. Thanks very much for watching, everyone.
Cheers. Have a good rest of your evening, everyone, and hope you enjoy the route.